Hi, I'm Gavin with Haverstick Designs. Welcome back to the Sound Project. So we have the pleasure of being at Electric Field Studios with Danielle and Nick. Thank you so much for having us
Thanks for being here.
and being on the podcast.
Of course.
We've known each other for maybe 3 years now, something like that.
Best 3 years of our lives.
Is it?
Yeah.
Truly.
Can't put a price on friendship.
Well, I think it's probably because of other reasons than knowing me, but I appreciate
Okay.
that.
All right.
It's definitely a highlight, I will say.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd like to start with you guys giving a little bit about your background and who wants to start? You know, paper, rock, scissors for it? Or?
You can go first.
Okay.
No, actually, I want a paper, rock, scissors for it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay.
You can go first.
Yeah,
All right,
he
cool.
wins, so he gets
I'll
to
go
choose.
first. All right, you go first.
Okay, so my name is Danielle Engen. I'm the Director of Studio Operations for Electric Feel. My background is in studio management. I started off in producer management and made my way into studios via a couple of producers that I was managing at the time who worked frequently at the Village Studios in West LA. Ended up going to work for the Village.
Mm-hmm.
It was like my first studio gig and fell in love working at studios. And then eventually went out to Australia, lived in Sydney for a few years. I was managing Studios 301 out there. Came back. I worked with Harvey Mason Jr. And then ended up at Electric Feel.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my trajectory.
Yeah. How'd you end up here?
How did I end up here? The studio manager who had been here for quite some time, Grant, I think had been here for
Wow.
a while, was leaving and we were looking for someone new. And I was looking to change it up a little bit myself and got introduced to Grant. And then the rest is history. And then ended up here and it's been, almost 5 years
Okay.
I've been here now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that something that, as you were growing up, did you always want to do something like this, or did it just kind of morph into it?
I wanted to do something in music because music was very much a part of what I was interested in growing up. Would have never imagined being working in studios or doing producer management.
Mm-hmm.
That part of it was kind of something that I more fell into, loved it, and decided to this is exactly what I want to be doing.
Now, do you do music yourself, or?
I don't. I did when I was younger.
He's saying yes.
You sing beautifully.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I did when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was a singer when I was younger.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I'm just helping other people be great. So.
You do a great job with that.
Thank you.
Well, how about you, Nick? You lost. Well,
I did
you
lose.
won.
Oh, I won.
You won.
I'm just malleable. I'll do whatever. No, so I'm Nick Mack. I'm Chief Engineer of Electric Field Studios. And I got my start, ironically enough, I would think, hating recording, funny enough. I had my first session when I was in this band in high school. It was probably a freshman or sophomore. We went to our friend got this Tascam. I think it was, I don't know if it was like a hard disk recorder or whatever it was, but it was very simple. Mm-hmm. We were hanging out and I was like, man, this is so boring. It turns out it was the company I was keeping. It was kind of boring. It wasn't fun. But I was like, man, this is not fun. And then I, went on to play in another band and we had to pay for recordings. And this time it was a lot more fun. I actually really enjoyed the experience. It was, with my friends, I think junior year in high school. But it would cost $400 to make the record. And I said, I don't have $400. I'm going to have a quarter of $400. So I can do this. I saw, we actually went to this studio in Riverside called, it's kind of rowdy, Love Juice Recordings. It's kind of wild. Okay. But I didn't name it. But Rufio and a bunch of other punk bands that were, really happening at the time. I think some early Panic at the Disco stuff was done there. So a lot of bands kind of went there for Dave Swanson, who was the engineer there. And, he was really cool and kind of would show me things when I had to ask questions or whatever. And he was interesting character. But I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I saw him with EQs. I'm like, he's, a guitar player, making everything bright, and I'm turning it down. I was like, oh, I'll make it bright. So I was like, I'm just going to get it.
Yeah.
I've told the story a few times, but my mom got me Sonar. I was like, I can't do this, and tried to return it. They wouldn't accept it because I registered it. And so I said, guess I'm just going to have to be an engineer now. So that's kind of how it started. And then, playing in bands, touring with bands and just kind of really falling in love with the process of just, the camaraderie, not only in the studio, but then taking the records out and playing them live was awesome. You know what I mean? And almost like hearing the two different versions was, because there's a difference to a studio recording and then taking it live, and either doing it justice or not. It was kind of a fun thing. So, as that kind of went along, I was signed to an independent label, Inker 84, with the band I was with, and everyone else kind of, enjoyed being at home more, and I liked to tour. So I was like, all right, well, that's not going to happen anymore. Played in a few other bands, filled in on some tours, and then decided to go to recording school at a recording workshop through Capital University in Ohio. Went through that program, and then kind of in parallel while I was making records with these bands, I had a home studio that I was running, and then finally got through my friend Rob von Zabern, he owns a surgical company and designs and develops tools for surgeries.
Oh, wow.
But he used to do live sound, so he kind of, was sympathetic to my plight, and he's like, look, I'll rent you out my office space I don't use in the machine shop where we make tools, and it smells like oil, but you can have it. Like, every time you have a session, break me off. I did. But during that time, I was like, all right, cool, I've got this foundation, making these records. I'd like to know more. YouTube was just starting to kind of take off, and I'd see all my favorite engineers. I was like, I want to be on their level. So I went to school, came back, spent a year working, in my own studio, and then got an email. I never checked my email back then, worse than I am now, and saw this thing, and it was like, hey, internship possibility in LA, whatever. And I basically wrote to school. I said, hey, write me a letter of recommendation. I want to go to this, and they did. And I wrote in the email to the studio, I said, hey, I want to clean your toilets. I want to clean the driveway. I don't even want to be thanked. It makes me upset. And I said that, and they hired me on as an intern. I worked for free for like 2 years. Great experience. It was really great though. But, I paid my dues there and then became a house engineer, which was really great, and got to work on, a lot of sessions that require all inputs going up at a time, proper engineering. We had a great chief engineer, Jason Dunahee, who showed me the ropes and was really like just a kind friend, but also hard on me in the ways that I needed to be, like really taught us the professional, like old school way in this kind of smaller, proper studio setup. So I didn't have to go to like this other facility where there's a ton of people. It was really actually quite special. So while I was there, like I said, met people like Post. That's actually where I met Post. That's where I met Lou,
Wow.
So I was working with Post on Stony. That's when Lou came over with Frank Dukes to meet him and chop it up. And, we were there, and it was kind of an interesting thing looking back now, sitting in, basically Lou was in here every day.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird through line. Ever since that moment, I've always kind of had like an affiliation on at least a friendship level with some people at Electric Feel. So, but anyway, hacked it out there a few more years, and then and started freelancing around 2016, 17, trying to break out of that house engineer thing. And then, in 2019, I met Grant here, because I came when I was doing some secret freelancing. And he's like, yeah, so what are you trying to do? And I was like, I want to be an engineer. I want to do this, He's like, do you want to be a studio manager? I said, let me think about it, because he kind of offered me a job, which is your job, and I'm not cut out for that. Thought about it over the weekend. It was exponentially more money than I'd ever made before. I was like, this is kind of dumb, but I said no.
Yeah.
But I said, but if you need a chief engineer or something like that, let me know. Calls me 2 weeks later. I'm in the tech shop, my other studio. And he's like, we cleared it. If you want the job, it's yours. I said, I'll do it. I said, put me in, coach. Hung up, put my 2 weeks notice in, and then I started here. Yeah, so.
Also, just shout out Grant Stromwasser.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's amazing.
Great person, great friend.
He brought both of us to Electric Feel.
He did.
And he's an amazing producer.
He is.
A wonderful human
Incredible.
being.
First time I heard him play the keys too, I was just, I didn't associate it, like, just because I knew this nice guy, I didn't really like know how good he was. And I was like, I see why you're leaving.
Yeah.
Pursue this is incredible.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, definitely.
Very talented.
Yeah. So then upon being here, it was like, everything I wanted. It was just amazing. It was crazy.
What year did you come here?
2019.
2019.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think May. Yeah.
Wow.
May 9th.
Oh, I always think 2019 is actually only like 2 years ago, but it actually is 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Time keeps moving.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So we met because I got a phone call from you. And you said you were doing a studio for Louis Bell. And it was awesome to even be considered for that, but it was interesting because you called and you said, yeah, wow, you called me back right away.
You did.
Yeah, and that was
I remember.
It's something different, I guess, for you. But yeah, it was just such an honor to be able to be a part of that project. But so talk a little bit about the undertaking it was to build a studio at his house.
It was an undertaking, as you know.
Yeah.
that was a really fun project. That project took place, let's see, around the time of just after COVID. Was that after COVID we started that?
Yeah, just after.
And I think at that time, many producers and songwriters were working on building out their own home studios because so many of the studios around town had, closed due to the pandemic. And Lou, I think, had, just moved into a new home and wanted to create, a space, a recording space for himself, a production space for himself there. And so reached out to Nick and I because, we've helped him out so much over the years with things. And and then, I think the first thing was finding a studio designer that was right for the project.
Yeah.
And we had a little bit of insight on what he wanted it to look like and what was important to him in terms of acoustics. And, we had worked with other studio designers previously, but we kind of used this as an opportunity to really search for who would be the right fit.
Sure.
I think it was Crowder's studio that I saw that you had done.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, which is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
I see those photos. I'm still like, wow, this is a stunning.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite
space.
ones we've done.
Yeah. And so, and then I reached out to you and said, would you be interested in doing this? And then we kind of dove into the design.
Yeah. It was, we scheduled a trip early on to just isolation was one of the biggest concerns, because we want to make sure that when he played music at whatever level he wanted to, wasn't going to disturb the neighbors. And
correct.
And it was a challenge, because it's isolation is the hardest thing to always deal with in acoustics, and it's a lot of labor, and didn't help that there were neighbors close by, and a sliding glass door as
correct.
well. Which
Thank you.
A lot of challenges.
Yeah.
But you guys rented a sound system. I came out, did some pre-testing to see how bad it was to start with, to have some sort of baseline, and kind of go from there.
Well, just to add context, what kind of listening levels are we talking to?
I mean,
talking about, sorry. When
60 dB? No, I'm just kidding. This is to the limit. He likes to hear things loud, present in your face, and just kind of like Mach 1, sometimes Mach 2. I don't know, but that's what he likes, so, and I think the cool thing about music is or production or whatever, it's it's too loud for me, but everybody has their thing. It's like a preference thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So everyone's got their preference, but that's
I do admit that when Lou was playing me, it was maybe a week or so before the new Post album came out. He's like, "You want to hear something?" I was like, "Sure." And then I discreetly put my earplugs in.
I do too.
I had 15 decibel filters, and then that brought it down to tolerable levels.
For sure. For sure. No, but then you listen to the record, and it obviously works well for him.
It works great.
I would be just...
Yeah.
No, but respect to Lou. No.
But it was one of those things where I can't lie. But as we were designing the isolation part of it, I was taking all the measures that we could, because it was one of those things where we couldn't. We did a room within a room for some of it, but we couldn't do it for all of it because it would have made the space so small. Because it's not a huge room, and we were putting these same speakers in there. So we wanted to make sure. Plus, we had the producer desk in the back because he collaborates with a lot of people, and so just trying to do as much of the isolation as possible. A lot of times in projects where we will do just enough or a little bit more, because if you do go overboard, you're just wasting money. But in that case, we pulled out all the stops. So we have spring hung ceilings and that double sliding glass door and
wall mat on the floor and everything.
Yeah, all the things.
All the things.
Because it was a concern.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
It works out nice. 'Cause
Perfect.
that's the other thing, is that Lou doesn't always hold normal business hours. You know, it's
Right.
it want to be able to do it
Whatever.
at 2 a.m. or whatever, and not disturb neighbors. And it worked.
Yeah, last test we did, he had me set it to melt. So and I wish I could have gone with him out to the street, but I stayed inside.
Yeah.
And earplugs, and they came back in and said they couldn't even hear it. So it was just perfect.
I remember that
perfect.
day.
That was a very good feeling. So I mean, thanks to you.
Yeah. It was really fun, because the isolation thing was, I think, the only part that wasn't fun for me. That was just worrisome and
Yeah.
just making sure that we get it right.
For sure.
The interior acoustics side of things, we had soffit mounted Genelecs in there, and then we also did like a stretch fabric system that Simplified Acoustics ended up doing the install for, and then Nyback Builds ended up building the Gobo. Did
Great
they also
job.
do the diffusers too?
They didn't.
No.
Mike Pfister did.
That was
Yeah, that's right, Mike Pfister.
Mike
Sorry.
Pfister
Shut
who
up,
did
Mike.
the desks.
Yeah, he did the desks too, like
Yeah.
custom desks, like because Lou has 3 keyboards,
Right.
and also the producer desk in the back, which has a nice access panel to be able to get to everything.
Yeah.
And we had to run conduits to each spot to make sure they popped up at the right locations,
Yeah.
keep everything real
They
clean.
did, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, everything is like surface mounted, I guess you would say. Like every bit, like the service panels, any gear he has at the front, it's all kind of
Yeah.
flat on the desk, so you're not really seeing any rack space anywhere.
No, it's beautiful. I mean, going back to that space, I mean, I would obviously, most people would love to have a space like that in their house,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he uses it all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, we also worked on this space.
Correct.
You're kind of revamping Studio A and Studio B here at Electric Feel. And I think one of the big things that we were brought in for was to help with the soffit mounting of the new speakers.
Yeah, the front wall, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that, last time I was here, actually, it was just plywood floors.
Yeah.
Like everything was ripped out.
Yeah.
And
The ceiling, the bits from the ceiling, the old tile were on the floor and
right.
everything. Yeah.
Right.
It was,
Which one thing I do want to mention, that funny story about what you found in the walls when you were here.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I think the demo was like the most fun part of the project
Yeah.
for me. It really was, because this space has existed, the studio has existed for so long, but we don't know a whole lot about the history of it. Like the building management has told us bits and pieces here and there, but you can't, I mean, we've scoured the internet and tried to like dig up like, who has occupied it over like the last few decades, but it's really difficult to find anything on it. So when we took the fabric down and demoed it and like everything kind of came apart, it was interesting to see some of the layers that, we didn't know were there. Like we found, there was a different color fabric like in between the
green
windows.
What
And I
was
was
it,
like,
a green?
yeah, it was like a forest green. It was
Weird.
very like,
Very
70s,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyway, and then the story you're talking about was when we walked in one morning after the contractors had been in here tearing everything apart, I noticed this little folded up piece of paper in the back corner of the room. And I walked over there and I picked it up and I saw like an old Spin magazine ad, like an insert that would have been in a magazine, but you could tell by the font on it that it was like a typewriter font, and it just looked like it was from an older Spin magazine. And then I unfolded it and I opened it, and it had a name and a phone number on it. And I hope I'm remembering this name correctly, but I believe it was Tom Talby, right?
Possibly. I don't remember.
It was Tom Talby, and it had a phone number on it.
We called it.
And so I Googled this gentleman's name, and he is and has been for many, many years the road manager for the Eagles.
Yeah. That's crazy.
We did try to call that number, but it
was very disconnected.
But
Yeah.
but it just shed a little bit of light on like, who has been in here
Yeah.
and, because we're on the Sunset Strip, we do know that, Kiss's management has been in the building for a long time, and the building management has told us that, hair metal bands of the 80s recorded here, and we've heard like bits and pieces, but
That's so cool.
there's no photos of the room that you can find.
Wild. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, when you told me that story, and don't you have a connection somehow to the Eagles
Yeah, don't you?
in some way?
Yes. Yeah, no, when I was growing up, Joe Walsh was at the time engaged to my older cousin, who was more like an aunt to
Okay.
me. So
Yeah.
he would be over at a lot of family parties and things like that. So yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to see, like, when you don't know the history of the space, and then you guys are creating your own history here. I mean, there's so many different artists that have recorded in here. Like, what are some of the ones that are most prominent?
Post Malone, of course.
Right.
We have had Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Adele.
Miley, right? Did she come here?
I don't know.
We were probably out of the office that day.
Yeah.
No, but I think she came here, who else has been? It's like a list almost sometimes. It's almost such a blur.
Yeah.
Just the last few years, but I mean, definitely all of those. I mean, Selena Gomez has been here.
Selena Gomez, Camila Cabello.
Yep, Camila Cabello.
On the hip hop side, we've had Young Thug,
Gunna,
Pop
Smoke, King Von. There's more.
And are you engineering some of those sessions?
Some of them, yes.
Yeah.
Some of them, yes.
Been probably pretty interesting.
They're very interesting. I was out of town for the Pop Smoke, and I was actually with Post on tour for the Pop Smoke one, but I was getting phone calls about how fun and exciting it was. And
There was a lot of people
It was
here.
exciting, a lot of things going on, and for things like that. But shout out to Joey Mora. He handled some of those sessions that we were just talked about, which are really cool, like some of the rap ones. He's really great with that stuff.
Nice.
He's a great engineer and a good friend too, and our studio coordinator.
Yeah.
Real good package deal right there.
That's awesome.
It's
But yeah,
amazing.
it is like it's funny you say all this history we don't know about, but can only guess. Like we'd love to know if anybody knows. I mean, think about
Yeah.
that. I don't know what they know, but
Drop a comment.
Yeah, drop
if
a comment.
you know anything about the studio.
let us know.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kenny Rogers owned the building at one time.
Oh, wow.
Which is super fascinating.
Okay.
Which is crazy in its own right.
Yeah.
I'd be stoked with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is cool to have that duality, like it kind of lives on, you know what I mean, in a different way. And I hope day to day we do keep making
Yeah.
some sort of history, something that people like, and it's kind of illuminated their life in some way. It's nice
Right.
to know that you're doing something, creating something that's, I guess, good in someone's life.
Yeah, I think about that all the time with what we get to do. It's like we get to create these studios that then art is created in that's going to inspire other people as well.
Yeah.
And it's like such a blessing to be able to do something
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I mean, we spend so much time in here. It's almost like you're building like a house sometimes for them. Because sometimes my phone will say directions to home, and it's like here, and it's kind of funny,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was definitely a time where it said that. So you build something where people's lives happen in there, and good, bad, fun, crazy, all different
Right.
types of emotions, and it's just I guess baked into the story of the place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So Danielle, on managing this place, it's kind of a funny question, but what's a typical day for you? There probably isn't a typical day.
There's a typical day is a last minute session.
We would know nothing about that.
No, I mean, sometimes things do just come together like very spur of the moment and very quickly. That's just the way this corner of the industry is. Just probably a lot of the industry is.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we're like, just hearing like, hey, so-and-so's coming in with this producer, that producer, and we have an hour or two to kind of like prep, get the rooms ready, get an engineer here if we need to. And so we move very quickly.
Sure.
So I think like that's one of the things that's really important for the staff at Electric Field.
It's the hour of power.
Is
Tell 'em.
like just the way we need our staff to be able to like think on their feet, move fast, like, be very quick and accurate with
Yeah.
what they're doing. So
Yeah.
a lot of last minute things do come up. It's not always the
Sure.
case, but more often than not. Like,
I know when we were hanging out during the Lewis project, I got to know what the sound was when someone was at Electric Field, because
Oh
your
my
phone
God.
would
Oh,
go
yeah,
off
yeah, yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Because like someone's showing up, and I mean, it's just so much to manage.
Yeah.
It's like amazing that because you're not only doing that, but you guys I know are building studios in Miami, and it's like there's a lot to coordinate on those things. So
Yeah.
like I sometimes wonder how you guys keep it all on.
Yeah.
Keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
It's
No.
like harder if you don't keep up with it, right? I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a lot happening right now. For me, I just to add to what you were saying, my role has changed quite a bit. Or I shouldn't say changed, because I'm still doing the same things I was doing when I started here, but it's just really evolved, and now it's just like I have so many other projects as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just managing the LA studio, but we're building a headquarters in Miami right now, which is it's a huge project, big project. There's another studio house that is under construction at the moment that I'm working on, and and then we were renovating this space. So
Right.
I was sort of juggling all three of those things, like construction projects, alongside just trying to manage the studio business and the staff. So recently, Nick mentioned Joey Mora, who's one of our most incredible employees that we're so lucky to have. And so he helps me out a lot just on the booking side of things, like,
Nice.
handling some of the last minute sessions that come up and coordinating things, making sure we have the right staff, the engineers, the fulfilling studio riders, making sure the rooms are set up correctly.
Yeah.
So he's amazing, and I don't know what I would do without him these days.
Right.
So.
That's great. He comes from also like an engineer, producer, great producer as well.
Nice.
But he'll understand, exactly what's going on in the room. So that just gives him even further insight to do such a great job. that he
Exactly.
does. So
Exactly. Like he could switch from like helping me out with like this booking sessions and getting the room set up to like, oh, I have to engineer this now. Okay, I'll jump in and I'll engineer it.
I was finishing up this room. He's like, I'm going to go record Sweetie in the other room. I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So he's here recording Sweetie, we're like talking to each other back and forth. It's kind of fun.
I think it's important in organizations like this. It's almost like just having Swiss Army knives, like people that can do everything.
Absolutely.
Because you never know what you're going to have on a given day.
It is very much here. That is the case.
Man, that's
100%.
awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule to do
course.
this for us.
course.
I always absolutely love working with the two of you. It's
Likewise.
that whole project with Lou and this one as well. It's like if I see your call come in, I'm like, all right, it's gonna be a good day.
I love
appreciate
it.
that.
Yeah.
I'm
I
just
feel
trying
the
to
same
find
way.
another project to work with
Let's
you
do it.
on.
Yeah.
Probably won't have to try too hard, but yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's like it's funny. Like we were saying before, we sat down. It's like, almost like an extended family in a way. You know what I mean? And it's
you.
like either we're working or not, doesn't matter. It's like every time I get to see you and your team, it's always
Totally.
like a great time. So
Absolutely.
it really
Thank
means
you
a lot
guys.
to us.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
So that's been another episode of the S.O.U.N.D Project. Thanks for being a part of it. If there's an artist that is recorded here that you heard listed that you really love, comment below, and we'll see you next week.